The Chuck Shoot Podcast.
There was something inside of you that said, I don't want to go through this anymore. And actually, I think it was later in life that we'll get to. But let's talk about the weight loss thing. Now, I normally wouldn't bring up a woman's weight in an interview, but I because you're so open about it on social media and other interviewers, and it's just such an inspirational story. Like you said, you lost 150 pounds, and you were, at that time before you lost the weight, you said you were pushing through like daily pain, like you felt judged and you had low confidence. Basically, it was kind of ruining your life.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, it massively harms your confidence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But not just that, I had mortifying experiences, just very embarrassing. I was, over 300 pounds and, not just the physical pain, but just feeling very unworthy and very low confidence. And it can be very upsetting,
Yeah.
There were some defining moments, definitely some very depressing incidents for sure.
Yeah, you talked about going to an airplane, that you were so embarrassed because your seatbelt wouldn't fit, that you were too embarrassed to ask for a seatbelt extender. And there was another experience where you went on a theme park ride and you couldn't fit in the ride. So like with those experiences, like do you just try to ignore it and pretend, like tell yourself, it's not that big a deal, this happens to a lot of people? Or I mean, it's just like you love the food so much that it's like an addiction and you just can't control it? Or like what's going through your mind at those times, like with those incidences? Do you just kind of brush them off and then just kind of move on?
In some incidents, I think it's more like you have a deep apathy. I feel like when you get, at least for myself, when I was that overweight, it was unreal that I would ever be able to do anything about it. It's one thing to be like, I need to lose 5 to 20 pounds or something, but it's another thing to be like, I need to lose a whole person or more than a whole person. It becomes like a very daunting thing. And at times there was trying to have just self-acceptance about it. But then part of me also really couldn't do that because I knew how unhealthy it was and how much I didn't want to accept it. I think people run into different things. I think people try to embrace it. And I'm all for self-love and body positivity. It's not about the way you look, though, at a specific point. It's actually just health. Like, are you like borderline diabetic? Are you like, or do you have diabetes? Or are you going to actually be around? Is this actually going to take 20, 30 years off your life? You know what I mean? So there's that fine line. And I feel like sometimes people are embracing unhealthy situations as well.
Yeah.
Just because they don't know how to handle it.
Did people ever,
I don't think obese people should feel horrible about themselves all the time. Like that's terrible.
No.
I was in that situation where, I had self-hatred, that's not good.
Did people ever make comments or discriminate against you when you were overweight or really like to your face?
I mean, I got it a lot from my dad. I loved my dad and we actually had a great relationship as like me as an adult. As a kid, he didn't know how to handle it. And, I definitely had like a toxic relationship because he was a very good and caring dad. And I had a good relationship with him. He would get very physically, emotionally, and verbally abusive about it. And he didn't know how to handle it. So he thought that beating me up sometimes so that I wouldn't eat food would help. It was rough, and I was on appetite suppressants from the age of 9.
Jeez.
Diets. I used to have to like pee on a keto stick. Like you can get them at the pharmacy or I used to. I haven't seen them, whatever. If it was purple, it meant that I was ketosing or I was burning fat or whatever, and I was safe. And if it didn't turn that color, then I'd get beat up. None of it worked, I just
did you like binge eat or like what? I mean, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to binge eat for sure. I mean, here's the other thing that was really messed up about the situation. This is why I say it was a toxic situation is like, I was basically raised by a single dad. I particularly remember Tuesdays we go to McDonald's, Fridays was like Golden Corral, Thursdays was like all you can eat barbecue. And I was supposed to be on like an Atkins or whatever keto version of a diet, but we were eating so much food. Like I wasn't actually losing weight. I was eating a lot. Like it wasn't even like binging. It was just like, that was how we ate. We just had terrible habits and routines and stuff like that. I ate when I was happy. I ate when I was sad. I ate when I was depressed. I ate when I was angry. Food I just had this very unhealthy relationship with it. And I definitely remember times that I would binge eat and maybe even eat myself into pain a little bit. I never had bulimia or any of that. But I definitely did have a very unhealthy relationship with it,
Yeah. Then talk about, I never heard this term until like, last 5 or 10 years, but like fat shaming. And then there's a lot of this stuff like big is beautiful. Like I think maybe the pendulum is swung kind of the other way. For example, Lena, I don't know if you watch the show Girls, Lena Dunham. She was a little bit overweight, just not like morbidly obese, but she was overweight and she would often pose nude in the show. And she, she was praised by other women like, oh, that's so great that you're, showing your body, even though it's not perfect. But then after the show, she lost all this weight. And then everyone came after her saying, what are you doing losing weight? Like that was a bad thing. I mean, can't we praise people for trying to be healthy? Like, why is that a bad thing?
Oh yeah, 100%. You know what it is? It's there's a lot of like things that people do, and there's how people perceive the communication, and I feel like people they don't always see things the same way, right? If the message is body positivity, that's great. I think a really good example is actually, I just want to, bring it out. There's like Lizzo, for example. Lizzo on social media, she's like her Lizzo beating, right, is her IG. She poses or she does videos a lot, like almost completely butt naked, shaking around and stuff like that. And she's praised mostly by it. I mean, there's a lot of haters, of course, in social media. So there's a lot of nasty people on social media, let's be real. I feel the message she's trying to say is body positivity and love yourself, which I think is a great message. But then some people take that as be obese and be unhealthy. So it's like you've got these polarizing kind of communications. Because the truth is, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor. Looking at her like just pure BMI or whatever, like I wouldn't consider that's healthy. But I think it's great that she's beautiful and she glows and she loves herself. And I think that's what she's trying to say. Like, I don't think she's trying to tell people like, hey, be unhealthy. And at the same time, you could argue that she really isn't that bad. I haven't seen her medical records or anything like that. I've seen her on stage and she's got tremendous energy and abilities and like whatever, you know, some people will argue it doesn't matter because like, if you have that type of weight on your body, like your body is stressed out. It's not good, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think
anyway,
there's a
like,
pendulum though, like, you know, when a girl is 5 or 10 pounds overweight and Hollywood is saying you need to lose weight, like that is ridiculous, but it's also ridiculous. You know, if someone was 300 pounds and they're saying big is beautiful, it's like, well, no, that's like, I'm concerned about people like that. Like we shouldn't shame them and tell, you know, call them names or something. I don't know. You know, it's kind of like a delicate dance, I guess, especially as a male. I don't want to be commenting on anyone's weight.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It has nothing to do with beauty. Anyone can be beautiful and beauty is subjective and it's inward and outward, right?
Yeah.
I think we could say big is beautiful because they're beautiful people, right? I think it's just a matter of healthy or not. Again, it's like if you see an unhealthy person, like usually you're not like, you're unhealthy. I mean, it doesn't help anything to say that, you know?
Right.
I think we want to help people. I think it's good to bring education awareness. I think it's good to positively enforce people and, you know, help them out when they need it. Ultimately, someone has to want to do it. I mean, you know, throughout my life, whether I was, you know, talked to in a nasty way or a nice way, it wasn't until I decided and felt like I could do something about it that I did it. You know? And it doesn't matter what anyone would have said to me. I had to make that decision myself, you know, and do the work. It's not easy. It's really a lot of hard work. So
let's talk about, let's talk about that. Cause it was actually when you decided it was a social media influencer that inspired you to lose weight. And this was interesting. And this is something that, you know, again, I don't want to get too personal, but I heard you talk about this. I think it's okay to bring up. You were worried that if you lost the weight, you're over 300 pounds, you might look even worse because of the loose skin and the way that you look was a big motivation. Honestly, I mean, the health is a piece of it, but you're young enough at that point that the health isn't really going to be an issue for another 10, 20 years. Talk about how you were able to overcome that. And by the way, and who was the influencer that inspired you, or can you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Her name's Simone Anderson. She really made it real to me. Like, so she was one of the final pieces for me, honestly. And I reached out to her and I let her know that. And she was very cool. She's in New Zealand, I think.
Okay.
But I really connected with her because she was around my age. She was around, you know, my weight, everything, right? You know, I have to admit, like how I looked was a really huge determining factor because as overweight as I was, like I, you know, held my weight fairly well. And I was worried that I was going to feel even worse about myself and even less confident than I already was, you know? And so that was like a real thing.
Yeah.
It's part of also why I decided to lose weight the way that I did and really, you know, get a personal trainer and then also really dedicate myself to working out because it actually worked out. I ended up looking thousands of times better than I thought I would by the end. And then I did. I went and I got skin removal surgery after I've lost a little bit more than 150 pounds at this stage.
Wow.
But yeah,
amazing.
Like closer to 160 or something. So then when I hit that mark, then I did. I rewarded myself and I went and I got skin removal surgery. And it would be lying to say that I'm 100% happy and confident with my body because I don't even know if that's possible. I mean, it's a constant thing, you know. But,
well, even the perfect people, quote unquote, perfect people complain about things. Britney Spears, I remember, would complain about things when, you know. So how did you lose the weight?
But I feel I mean, my confidence is so much better. After I got my surgery and I looked at myself in the mirror, you know, just without clothes or whatever, I literally cried because I was like, I look really good. You know, like I feel I could be comfortable like with someone looking at me and feel beautiful, you know, and that's huge.
That's huge. So how did you lose the weight? You said personal trainer. Did you do a specific diet like vegan or keto or paleo or low calorie or what did you?
It's a combination of things. I mean, to be honest, like the first thing that I did was really cut my calories. Yes, I've worked with personal trainers throughout the entire time. And some people will say, well, I don't have money for that or whatever, but it's a worthwhile investment. Even if you don't have money, I would say just pay for it because most people spend more on coffee and other things than they do on like,
was there any
their health.
Yeah. Was there any foods that you had to give up? And if so, what do you miss the most? I know you like Korean barbecue. Is there anything else that you had to give up or?
Well, you've really done your research. You know, nowadays, I don't restrict myself at all except by quantity.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I have the healthiest relationship with food I've ever had. Like I allow myself, like, look, I have chocolate on my desk right now. I ate 2 pieces of this today.
Nice.
But everything is about being temperate, which is like everything in moderation.
Sure.
I would say I went through many different stages, you know, after I dropped my first real good chunk of weight and I had broken under 300 pounds. I was stably under that. You know, I decided to go and get a sleeve, like a gastric sleeve. So I did that, but I knew that, you know, people do that and they drop a lot of weight sometimes and then they gain it all back or they don't really get down to where they need to be or they don't look anything like the way that I do. You know, that helped me a bit with the portion control, but I had only done that when I was already halfway through my weight loss progress. So I totally changed my mental, my physical state and my habits, and I was exercising every day and I was eating well. I definitely, there are some laws and rules that apply no matter what diet you're on. The fact is, if you eat more calories than what you burn, you will not lose weight. So calories is a thing.
Yeah.
Now, some people decide different ways of how they count it, or they don't count it, or they just focus on types of foods because certain foods are actually low calorie versus others. But it's just a fact. There's other things that we could all agree on. It doesn't matter what diet you're doing. You know, most diets do not involve eating refined sugars or simple carbs and stuff like that. So there's some basic stuff we can all agree on. It doesn't matter like what your diet is, whether it's a special diet, whether you're vegan or you're not, you know, or you eat meat or whatever. So I applied all of that stuff. I consistently stayed exercising. Once I was doing that, I would say I went through different phases. Funnily enough, you know, the thing that really worked for me the most was my current trainer that I work with. He was like, okay, I'm setting you a protein quota. You have to eat a certain amount of protein. And he made it super high. It was like, like for me, like 150 grams of protein. I was like, how am I ever going to be able to eat that much protein? It's like impossible. I could eat all day and it'd be hard. Like I'd be so stuffed. It'd be like impossible. But what that forced me to do was find low calorie, high protein, and it had to be very clean because you're not going to get that amount of protein in crappy food.
So what's your go-to high protein, low calorie food?
Okay. So shakes, I don't like them, but I'll do usually 1 or 2 a day because that's a way to get like 20, 30 grams in, generally speaking. There are some that are better than others. I forgot the brand of the powder protein. My trainer gave it to me. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'll connect you up with my trainer because I can't remember. But I'll be totally honest with you. The shakes that I actually will do are not the best, but they're not the worst. And those are the Orgain.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah.
Let's be real. Like I live a really fast-paced life. I run a business. I do a lot of stuff. I'm busy. I'm a mom. So grab and go is super important to me. Convenience is huge. And I'm all about being able to juggle your life. And so it's good, but it's not the best. So I'm not going to vouch for it and say, this is the best thing out there. It works. It works.
Absolutely.
So those Orgain shakes that you can buy from Costco, you can also buy them on Amazon. It's like the clean one.
Yeah.
The organic clean one. That one's great. I get like 20, 30 grams out of that. And I'll do 1 or 2 of those a day. I found a couple other tricks, honestly. Again, not the best, but it helps, you know? So you can get Quest chips and like,
yes, I love those.
I don't like all of them. The one that I'm like, that I think is the best one is like the nacho cheese one.
Yes, that's my favorite too. Yeah, I love that one.
And again, I'm not saying they're not the best, but they're not the worst. But they get your protein in, right? Okay, so I found this trick. You can eat cottage cheese, like a cup, like a half a cup of that, and like so much protein for so little calories.
That's a good deal. Okay.
Otherwise, eggs, lean chicken, fish. I like scallops, shrimp. Like seafood, generally speaking, is very high protein, low carb.
Very cool.
I'm sorry, low calorie. And I love me some steak, you know? And so I always prioritize my protein in before anything else. And then if I have space, then I eat meat and I eat vegetables and fruit.
Awesome.
And then I almost have no space to eat anything else because I have this protein quota.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Okay.
It might be a little harder for a vegan, but then I guess you just have substitute protein.
Sure.
And then you stay away from processed food as much. But then what happens is like, okay, once I got my protein quota in, then I can eat what I want. And I'm pretty full at that point. So I don't really have much space for other things. So like when I eat my chocolate that I have sitting here, I'll eat like 1 or 2 pieces instead of, if I hadn't had my protein quota, I'd eat the entire thing. Probably.
Sure. That makes sense. Well, that's very cool. So yeah, you've lost over 150 pounds, 160. And you're still going. I mean, you're still eating really healthy. So maybe some more weight. Are you still trying to lose more? Are you happy where you're at for now? Or
I'm not satisfied yet. But I definitely am not stressing myself out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I could probably lose another 20 pounds or something, but I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
It's amazing. Very inspirational.
Yeah.